balance of my time.
Mr. Conaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This morning we heard much about the July 25th call in which the President asked for a favor. At least in Lieutenant Colonel Vindman's mind, that was equivalent to a demand, an order, a requirement. And yet, in the last part of the conversation between the two heads of state, President Trump talks about a prosecutor that he's particularly in favor of and would like to see stay there. And Zelensky, though, says, Mr. President, no, since we've won the absolute majority in our parliament, the next prosecutor general will be 100% my person, my candidate. Does that, to either one of you, does that sound like a head of state who's been cowed or bullied and is under the thumb of the President of the United States?
Not at all.
No, sir.
All right. The impact of the pause that occurred, the 55-day pause in the lethal assistance or the security assistance, none of us have really understood exactly what happened during that time frame. No one knew about it other than internal U.S. folks until late August, and so the Russians would not necessarily have known about it. The potential impact that I agree with on Russia's interpretation of our support for Ukraine wasn't known until those last 14 days. But the impact on the lethal aid that they already had, should Russia had tried to move the line of contact further west with their tanks, would the lethal assistance that we'd already given been available to them to push back on that?
Yes, it would.
Mr. Morrison, comments?
Sir, I agree with that, but I would also add the hold, as I understood it, applied to Ukraine security assistance, UASI, UASI, and FMF. It did not apply to FMS, and the javelins were provided under FMS. Okay,
so the most lethal weapon that President Trump provided to the Ukrainians, that President Obama and his national policy, which he set, was available to them should the Russians have pushed their tanks west. The javelins.
Yes, sir.
Throughout that process, even with the pause, even with all the stuff that was going on.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Associated Press is reporting that, Ambassador Volker, you mentioned it earlier, that the Russians in an act of war took 2 gunships and a tug and 24 sailors last November. And yet the Russians have now given the 24 sailors back in September, and the Associated Press is reporting today that they're giving the gunboats and the tug back. Does that sound like Ukraine is inept at being able to negotiate with the Russians because they're wounded in some way by our actions?
No, I would not say that the Ukrainians are inept.
All right. Thank you, sir.